For those of you who didn't know, I currently swap between two monitors for my own desk setup. One is a 4K 60Hz IPS panel from LG for video editing and content creation, and the other is Alienware's 240Hz 1080p TN panel for high refresh rate gaming. And today that changes because this monitor claims to deliver the best of both worlds. A display that is suitable for both professional media use with its 4K Nano IPS 10-bit panel, whilst also delivering a 144Hz refresh rate with 1 millisecond response times. That combination is extremely valuable to me as an end user, so much so that I paid full price for this monitor with the full intention of using it as my primary gaming display. So after a few days, let's see if it really is possible to replace two of my current monitors with just this. Now, I won't spend too long on the design because, let's face it, there are a lot more interesting things to talk about here. The stand is okay, it's sturdy enough to keep the actual display nice and rigid, but for some reason I did expect it to be at least part made of metal, but it's unfortunately just entirely plastic. There's also a red layer on the bottom of the stand that I'll probably end up painting black. You've also got this huge RGB ring on the back of the monitor, and I was surprised just how bright this actually gets. It is enough to throw a bit of light on the back of the wall behind it and potentially reduce eye strain, and it is easily controllable with a small scroll wheel. My favorite part about the entire design though is without a doubt those ultra slim bezels. These are the slimmest bezels that I've seen on any gaming monitor to date, and it's just so refreshing to see. There really is nothing more that I want from a monitor design, so big thumbs up to LG here. You've also got plenty of adjustment in every direction except swivel, but for most users I don't see that as an issue. So let's tackle the first and easy part of this monitor first, and that's when it comes to content creation and professional media use. My own use cases for this display are revolving around video editing, as most of you could probably guess. More specifically, editing and color grading the 12-bit raw footage that you are watching right now. That demands critically accurate colors with a wide color gamut, and that's exactly what the 27GN950 gives you out of the box. The white point is spot on at 6500 Kelvin, and we get superb color gamut coverage, over 96% of DCI-P3. This is, objectively and just my opinion, the best looking panel that I've ever seen, and it's an absolute pleasure to work with for color critical work. And some of you might be wondering, why not go for an ultra wide if you're going to be video editing? And a lot of it does come down to personal preference. Although I used to edit on a 3440 by 1440 resolution ultra wide, I'm now really enjoying working with a higher density 4K panel. I have window scaling reduced to 125% from the default 150%, which ultimately gives me more pixel screen real estate to work with in the end. But now let's get to the important stuff, and that's 4K gaming, specifically 4K gaming at 144 Hz. And I'll just start off by saying that 4K gaming has really been used to sell this incredibly immersive experience beyond anything else, but it's not the sheer resolution that creates that really immersive gaming experience that most of you are after, but in fact more often than not, it's refresh rate and frame rate. So I played a fairly large variety of games here to test things out, everything from Call of Duty Warzone to the new Star Wars Squadrons, Red Dead Redemption 2, and also Valorant. And the experience was mixed. In games where I could hit 144 frames per second or even exceed it, the gaming experience was simply awesome. It really is the best of both worlds. But games where I couldn't hit that target, even ones that ran at around 100 frames per second, the experience was honestly kind of average. So 4K gaming, all of those pixels and all of that detail, is really worth nothing without a high refresh rate and frame rate by its side. Otherwise, not only will your games look like a blurry mess, but your inputs into the game world will feel severely delayed. And to be confidently gaming at 4K in a range of titles today, you'd ideally be pairing this display with an RTX 3080 or a 3090 if you can somehow justify the over 2x price jump and 24GB of VRAM. I did test the 27GN950 on both an RTX 2080 Ti and the RTX 3090, and the experience was actually very clear cut between them. The 3090 delivers around 45 to 50% more performance worse than the 2080 Ti at 4K, and that's the difference between getting 100 FPS or completely maxing out the adaptive refresh rate here of 144 FPS. Speaking of which, this monitor is both FreeSync and G-Sync compatible, so there's adaptive refresh rate here regardless if you're using an AMD or NVIDIA GPU. However, to achieve 4K and 144Hz, you'll need to make sure that your system is running a GPU that supports display stream compression over DisplayPort 1.4. That means an RTX 20 series or RX 5000 series GPU or newer, otherwise you'll be limited to 4K 60Hz. And on the topic of response times, they're about what I expected from a 144Hz IPS panel, but maybe with a bit more ghosting. The 27GN950 has 3 response time modes: normal, fast, and faster, the last of which is what LG likely used to obtain that 1 millisecond gray-to-gray response time result. As we can see though, this results in brutally obvious pixel overdrive artifacts, and I'd consider this fairly unusable and distracting in game. The other 2 modes, normal and fast, seem close enough to recommend either one, but I do think the normal setting just looks slightly better. It's not until we compare it to one of the fastest displays on the market currently though, ASUS's 360Hz IPS, that we can see just how much more smearing the LG actually has. This isn't to say that the 27GN950 is unusable for competitive shooters, because that is far from the truth, but I think this just shows that yes, you definitely will get improved motion clarity on many of the faster 240Hz and 360Hz monitors out there. So with that in mind, would I consider this fast enough to realistically replace the 240Hz 1080p monitor that I use as my primary gaming display? And actually, with a powerful enough GPU, yes, in most games. Games that I don't consider super competitive, 144Hz is by no means slow at all, and at 4K resolution, this is pretty much as good as PC gaming currently gets. However, in those try-hard competitive shooters that I like to play like Valorant, CSGO, and Overwatch, although this is more than feasible in those titles, I'll still be keeping my 240Hz display on standby for those sweaty competitive sessions. But again, for most titles, especially the ones that I've been playing a lot lately, like Star Wars Squadrons and Warzone, this really hits that sweet spot between speed and immersion. And best of all, it's an excellent display for professional creative use. So after a night of video editing, if I want to play a quick few rounds, I can easily do that. For me, that is extremely valuable. However, if you are not after a monitor that also doubles as a display for creative use and one with supreme color accuracy or 4K resolution, then I would definitely steer you in a different direction. Something like a 1440p 165Hz or even a 240Hz monitor at the same price would be a much better use for most of you out there. And as I alluded to earlier in the video, try not to get sucked into the 4K gaming hype. That's not really why I bought this monitor. It's mainly for that 144Hz refresh rate, which is really what makes the 27GN950 worthwhile in my opinion. 4K gaming is definitely nice, don't get me wrong, but I'd much rather be playing at 1440p 144Hz or 165Hz than 4K at 60Hz or 100Hz. So if you are looking for an upgrade, I will leave this one and a few others linked down below. As always, a huge thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.